Women of Reddit, what was your worst run-in with a creep? r/askreddit. So, last year I got a flat tire on a semi-busy road right when a snowstorm started. Since I had AAA, I figured I would use one of my roadside assistants to have them replace the tire with a spare that I had, and I wouldn't have to go outside since I forgot gloves. While I was waiting, a mid-40s early 50s man came up to my window and asked if I needed help. Thinking that he was just a good Samaritan at the time, I thanked him but told him, no, I was just waiting for AAA. Now, if he left here, I would have a nice story about a guy willing to help me with a car problem. Instead, he gets downright pushy. He lives nearby. I can just take my car there and change it in his garage. Why don't I just stay in his house until AAA comes? I kept telling him no until he starts yelling, and I rolled up the window and he starts pounding on it. Eventually he left when the AAA guy came, but I still took a very long and circuitous route home. There was a creepy hunched old man who used to come into a pub I worked at. He used to say and do slightly weird things, and then one day he called one of the glass collectors fat. She was 16 at the time, and to apologize he went to fist bump her, then grabbed her hand and put her fingers in his mouth. A few years ago I lived in a tiny condo right next to a few trails in San Diego. I was on a pretty strict running and hiking routine. One night it got dark faster than expected. A man who appeared to be about 6'3" and 200 pounds approached me as I was nearing the end of my hike. He told me, with a smirk on his face, to be careful as there are many things that could hurt me when the sun goes down. The next day as I'm exiting my back gate he's standing there as if he's waiting for me. He introduced himself and admitted he's been watching me for a while. I decided to pretend like I was grabbing something from my car and went back into my house. For the next few days I see this guy circling my condo, looking in if the curtains are open. He was always walking around day and night. I checked the Megan's Law website and surprise, there he was. Multiple charges including rape by force or fear and child pornography. I decided to contact his parole officer and he immediately returned my call, stated he could tell I fit his MO and to use extreme caution. He said he would do what he could to get him out of the neighborhood. After that call I thankfully never saw him again. 14 years old and alone on the subway. Man sits in a seat across from me, spreads his legs and starts masturbating through his pants while staring me straight in the eyes. I was getting ready to jump up and run out at the next stop. An older gentleman suddenly appeared, stood directly in front of me like a shield and stared the guy down. At the next stop he pointed to the door and made him get off. I hope I said thank you, but I was in shock. So thank you, dear man who protected me and made me feel safe. When I was in elementary school I used to follow around a couple neighbors whenever I had a spare minute. One was in his 70s taking care of his 95-year-old mother. He couldn't leave her home alone, so he was always around. He showed me how to keep bees. The other was a middle-aged divorced man who missed his kids terribly when they were with their mom. He and his wife just doted on me. I told one of them about a nice man at church who wanted to be my friend. He grabbed the other, and both men absolutely came unglued. I never saw that guy again after that and can't even remember what he looked like, but I remember how upset these two men were. I cried when one of them said grown men don't make friends with 6-year-olds. Because they were my friends. They just hugged me tight, said it was different, and carried me home to my parents. Good guys are amazing and incredible parts of a community. Question: How do you explain this difference to children? Because I can obviously see the difference as an adult, but to a kid, they are both just trying to be friends. Edit. Excellent responses, thanks. I am not a parent myself, yet, but I don't want to be ignorant about this stuff in the future. The new shtick is talking about tricky people. Tricky people want kids to keep secrets from their parents. Tricky people want to be around kids alone. Tricky adults come up to stranger kids for help. Adults don't need help from kids, they would seek out another adult. Tricky adults might make threats against people you love, or ask that you secretly do something to keep from getting in trouble. There are lots of good books and resources on the topic. I was 8 years old and waiting for the bus in the morning to go to my mom's work. A guy sat next to me at the bus stop and his bus pass was the wrong color, expired. He told me he loved me and as scary as it is, I said thank you. When the bus finally came, I got on first and the bus driver lady immediately shut the door behind me. She said the man knelt down to try and look up my shorts and that he wouldn't be taking the bus with us. I told my mom and after work we went and bought me my first pepper spray. As a fucking 8-year-old. It's a tie. Outside of a string of bars a drunk man yelled "You're my type," then ran up, bear hugged me, picked me up and wouldn't let me go. My male friends intervened and somehow the guy fell over and took me down with him and still wouldn't let go. I was so shocked that I didn't fight back, but I wish I would have. The other was a guy who followed me into my apartment building lobby and wouldn't leave. He was under the impression that he was going to be invited to my place. I got rid of him by giving him a fake phone number. I'm sorry, random person who likely received texts from the creep. The most memorable was when I was sitting in my parents' front garden, on the swing, reading. The way everything is laid out with the trees and whatnot, you can barely see the swing/deck/barbecue area from any perspective that's not from the front door. Very private spot. Anyway, I was just sitting there reading when I hear someone walking up. Assume it's a family member because how would it not be ? Someone plops down on the swing next to me, throws an arm around me and it's just, some fucking guy. Says some stuff, tries to move closer and proceeds to attempt to keep me from leaving when I get up. I kfo of there. Practically sprint back to the house and tell my dad what just happened and that there's some asshole in our garden being completely gross at me. He just laughs and says, "Oh, that's just, new across the street neighbor. Be nice." The fuck? Over the next couple years, shithead would go on to make me and my older, only occasionally visiting, sisters super uncomfortable any chance he got. Long stories. And his poor, but large and angry, dog was always loose in the neighborhood and murdering other people's pets. That motherfucker still makes my blood boil. I was walking my dog and made the mistake of not rushing home once it got dark. A man in a baseball cap and oversized jacket blocked my path to comment how pretty my dog was and how I must take good care of him. I smiled, tightly, and thanked him. Told him to have a good day and nodded and went to go around him. So he naturally grabbed my arm and said, "Yeah, I bet you take real good care of anything you have. You married?" I lied and said yes. He let me go but followed me home. I wound up calling my boyfriend to come pick me up. A guy saw me in the metro and thought I was cute, which meant he had to follow me on my 5 kilometers walk home to my flat in the middle of the night. He introduced himself to me as I was about to put in the key to my door. When I delivered pizzas and I was 18, this guy asked me if I wanted to step in while he grabbed his money. It was cold and rainy, so I took him up on the offer. He ended up trying to keep me there till his mom got home because he didn't have enough for the pizza. He tried to force me into a pyramid scheme and kept making uncomfortable comments about me. I had left my phone in my car, so I couldn't text my manager to call me to give me an out, because no matter how hard I tried to leave, this guy would find some way to block my path. I took off when he went to the bathroom and told my manager about what happened. Females weren't allowed to deliver to him anymore. We eventually found out he was a convicted sex offender too. Normally I find an out and I always have an escape plan. But I put myself in a position where I couldn't give myself an escape. I went on to manage forward/deliver pizzas for several years, but after that day I implemented a new rule, which was, never enter anyone's home unless I knew who it was. I'd stand in the pouring rain any day over entering a stranger's home. I come from a safe low-crime area, but my gut instinct that night was that I was in danger. Used to work with this old man that would touch me all the time on my arm or my back. It's hard for me to make a scene, although I wish that I had been direct with him. My solution was to shuffle away from him anytime he got close to me. It did seem to fix it, but he was kind of a dick afterwards. Also, same job, I was kissed on the neck by another co-worker very suddenly. This guy was not from the US, so I chalked it up to cultural differences, but I did not view him the same way afterwards.